Hello and welcome back to Reverse Filmmaking, where we continue our dive into House of the Dragon Season 2. I am Kenny.
Hi, Kenny. I'm D.
That's right.
Yes.
We're both filmmakers, and we are here to analyze, dissect, praise, and shit upon the works of filmmakers across the land.
All right.
Titled Rhaenyra the Cruel. What'd you think, D?
I both really loved it and have some qualms now about the series.
About the series itself?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Ooh.
That's my hot take.
All right, yeah. Yeah, similar headspace, actually. There was a lot to really appreciate in this episode, and there were several moments where I felt like the show was earning a solid C instead of an A.
Right.
And yes, we were saying before we started, we were kind of lacking a villain
Right.
in this show.
Right.
There's been many times it felt like we were setting up for a villain. At the beginning of season 1, you're like, oh, Daemon's going to be the villain. And then we developed empathy for Daemon. We have Aegon in the council room, and he's like telling the Lannister guy to give pony rides. And I'm like, oh
shit.
He's going to be like
He's Joffrey
or something. And then they give him all this character development. I'm like, oh, I have empathy for Aegon. Right? I don't hate any of these people.
Right.
Until now. Yeah. I hate Kristen Cole.
Yeah.
In the best way.
Yeah, he's finally chosen like a side to live on.
For me, the real kind of disappointing parts of this episode, where there were some scenes that just seemed to be really unimportant and had way less effort put into them, fucked up the pace big time.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So when I watched it, I felt like I got probably an overall, I hate saying this, but I feel like it's an overall C+ rating because of what they're doing with the writing. And this is what my qualms are about the series moving forward, is that there's so many scenes in here that are setting up more stuff. Yeah. And like what we said last episode, we were talking about, oh yeah, they're setting up a whole lot of things. There's not a lot of stuff that's relevant right now.
Yes.
I feel like the show itself gets pretty stagnant and gets kind of boring as you're watching it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that happened a bit in episode 1, too.
Yeah.
And now that we've seen the twins fight, I can refer back and point out to what I was saying last episode.
Right.
Is that these, what felt like kind of like shoehorned in scenes featuring Eric and Arik.
Exactly.
Didn't come about in an organic way that moved the plot.
Yeah.
It was very obviously a way of, audience, you got to remember who these guys are so you'll care when we do the thing next episode.
And so that's what I feel like they're doing
100%.
Now. With like every scene being 2 scenes now with Alan and his brother.
Yes.
I'm just like
him and his brother, and then later his brother is on the beach and sees a dragon.
And he sees a dragon in the air.
And I'm like, ooh, a dragon's something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
That was literally 2 shots for no reason.
Sees a dragon.
Yeah.
And so we're spending time with characters that we have yet to be given any reason to care about.
Right.
That's the big drag.
Yeah.
The other one being the blacksmith dude. We go into his home.
Hugh. Yeah.
And this
his whole
felt
family.
So abrupt.
Right.
That I thought I had missed something.
Right.
Because this scene was going on as if I already had emotional investment into this family.
Yeah.
The sick girl, the mom trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
The dad coming home and he's the blacksmith and is like, oh, the king might help us out. And I was just like, we just followed this guy into his internal life now?
Right. And you know what the scene was? It was that scene in Justice League where we cut to the family that is going to be saved by Superman.
Oh my God. That is.
Yeah.
It kind of is.
It feels that way.
And the problem, the thing I hate about this kind of thing, because it doesn't feel organic, and by organic I mean flowing out of the development of the plot, flowing out of the drama that's happening on the screen at the moment, not in the future.
Right, like literally taking out this scene does nothing to the plot.
Right, the episode doesn't change if you pull it.
Right.
Same with the Allen scenes. It makes it a tip of the hand.
Right, about
now
what you're going to do.
Now it's cueing the audience to, this will matter in the future. A thing's going to happen with these guys, and it won't it won't shock you, it won't take you off guard, and it won't necessarily hurt your feelings either because we're not emotionally attached to these people.
Well, one thing, the Eric and Eric part, I think they were in season 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when they were
mostly in like the last 2 episodes.
Yeah. So when they were introduced, it was very obvious to me that something was going to happen, like you said, with this scene with Alan and his brother, where the 2 Erics are introduced. They are twins, and we're following them as they're looking for Aegon through that whole last part of season 1. So weird, because I'm just like, why do I care about these 2? I know what they're doing, but why are we so invested in them?
Yeah.
And it isn't until later that we find out, it's because they're going to battle because they have to take place.
I wonder if this is kind of a risk of adapting this kind of material, right?
Right.
Because if Eric and Eric if their battle was a scene from the Game of Thrones series, we probably would have had them over like a 20 chapter span of developing who they are and what they feel and why they, at their core, why did one side with Rhaenyra and one with Aegon, you know?
Right.
We don't really get that because it doesn't exist in the source material.
Right. So that's what I was thinking about this adaptation. Exactly what you were saying is that going forward in this series, I'm like, how much more stuff is to be adapted and then just kind of stuck in there?
Right. Because they're doing the opposite with the main characters.
Right.
Like we started off with saying, I think in many ways these are better developed characters than we had in even Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Aegon especially.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and it's weird and cool, like you said, to build empathy with both sides.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. That makes it complex and nice. But yeah, there's no we don't have that with these quote secondary characters. And it just feels weird as to why they're in the story at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like we have an A team making the main plot and a B team doing the subplot kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And in the source material, it's almost like a footnote. This thing happened and it was significant and important. Now back on to the main story.
Sure.
That's how the book reads.
Yeah.
And so for some of those footnotes, they take it and build it into a very complex thing that is its own thing.
Yeah.
Infusing it with material that's not from the books to really build it out. But then in others, they're like, oh yeah, this important thing happened. We got to make sure it's in the show. So it's just drop it in the show.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. That's what bothers me the most.
I get that.
Totally.
I get that.
Yeah. That's not to say that it's there's much heavier sins that you can do with any kind of filmmaking, right? This hits all the fundamentals, and then it hits more, and it does really, really good at some stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about last episode, that whole, Kragan, is that his name? Stark?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That whole scene with him, which is completely unnecessary.
It was.
Is a really cool, really interesting development scene.
Yeah.
Not just because the visuals bring you back to Game of Thrones, but also because you get to hear about Torrhen Stark, and you get to hear about how, these people are built and stuff like that. And it's neat, but I'm just like, give me some integration.
Yeah.
Give me some reasons as to why I should care.
There's also, along with the challenges that come with adaptation, are the challenges that come with prequel and sequel territory.
Right.
Especially prequel and sequel where there's already a developed fan base. Because then you're making content with it in your head that you want to communicate things to people that already have a whole lot of context in their head, as opposed to telling a story that stands on its own without that context.
Right. To make a point, and to bring up something that is a little painful, Three Body Problem.
Let's do a drinking game whenever we mention Three Body Problem.
They had that same issue with adapting material to people who either have never heard of it or have already read the books, and it seems like they just decided to not do either, which was really weird.
Right.
But you're right. Like, there is a lot of stuff in here that needs to say, yeah, we get it, to both fans of Game of Thrones, fans of the books, and people who've just not seen either.
Yeah. So I'll give a really a good example and bad example of this.
Okay.
So like the most egregious of this phenomenon, I think, was the adaptation of The Hobbit
Oh, sure.
Just turned into 3 very bloviated, clunky movies.
Yeah.
Right? It was filled with like direct winks to the audience, all throughout. Like the one at the very end of the last movie, Legolas, who is from the original Lord of the Rings movies, is in it again, and at the end, Hugo Weaving kind of shows up out of nowhere,
that's
and
right,
tells him like, "I want you to go meet a friend of mine.
Right.
His name is Strider."
Yeah, so everybody goes, "Oh,"
and he goes, "Okay," right? Again, useless, not attached to the story.
Yeah,
doesn't do anything other than it's like, audience, remember Strider, you know? And you get exciting, yeah.
Right. So that's the bad example.
That's stupid and bad, yeah. I think the good example would be El Camino. There's so much content before that movie in Breaking Bad. I mean, 5, 6 seasons?
Yeah, 5 or 6 seasons, yeah.
And yet, I would wager that El Camino could be watched by someone who hasn't seen Breaking Bad and would still enjoy the movie and understand what's going on.
That's interesting.
They do a weird flashback scene where he sits and is talking to Walter White, which I thought might have been unnecessary. and Bryan Cranston's wearing a bald cap, and it doesn't look very good.
There's another series, though. Better Call Saul does a lot of, sometimes ties into Breaking Bad. They even have a whole character from Breaking Bad. But they stand on their own completely.
They do stand on their own.
Yeah.
I'd say there's a few things they do tone-wise and camera-wise that do this same phenomenon. Like when you meet Tuco the first time, there's almost like a music sting that goes like, "That's Tuco."
Well, there's a close-up on him,
But if you hadn't seen Breaking Bad, it still wouldn't matter.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
you're
exactly,
right. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. And I share your concern that the rest of this series will be littered with that kind of writing.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's just weird because it takes me out of the story when I'm introduced to a scene that I don't know who these people are, and suddenly we move on and they don't matter. Like nothing that you talk like you would never see. This is why I talked about just now from Justice League is because you would never see that in a movie. You would never go follow some characters, cut away from them, show something else to set up some other plot way later on, and then go back to your characters, never talking about them again. Yeah. Unless you're Justice League talking about them.
Yeah, so you'd never see that in a good movie.
Right.
Anyway. But yeah, to really hammer home the point, regardless of how cool and beautiful that opening scene at the wall was in episode 1, if it was completely omitted, and when all we had was that when Jace gets back, he starts with the Northmen have sworn.
Right.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
The story would not have changed at all. No change to the story.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of like the whole point is what you're doing with your camera should move a story along.
It should.
And keep you in a story. Right.
Right.
I still don't think it's a C+ episode. I feel like it's a better episode, but I did feel that way after the first watch.
Yeah, well, I had kind of 2 modes of watching. It was I'm watching it and I'm going, I love this, because I'm a fan, right? I'm a fan of Game of Thrones and I love House of the Dragon, so I love everything that they're doing and I'm looking forward to all these character changes and everything. And I'm all here for anything that's Valerian, later on.
Yeah.
Or Valarian, whatever they're called. It's interesting that you're showing Ellen
and
all that.
Okay, I get what you mean.
So like I want to see more of it. Cool. But it's not integrating me as much as other good shows like Breaking Bad, like Severance, like these other ones.
Yes. Yeah. Instead, kind of the show is telling us maybe not, but it will be.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like I want things to move forward more, and I want to do less hints.
Yeah.
Of what's to come, because we shat all over that 3-body problem because they did that so much in there, where they're just like, hey, there's this little tidbit, and we called it faux foreshadowing because it wasn't really, where you just introduce something randomly, and then use it way back.
I don't expect to see that in an HBO production.
Right.
I really don't.
Right.
So that is worrisome.
Yeah. So. Anyway, so that was what got me into the more critical mode, but I do love the series, obviously.
Yeah,
'cause I'm a fan.
yeah. And man, there was some really good emotional moments in this episode. I think everything that's going on with the main beats of the story are A+.
Sure.
You know.
Oh yeah, everything with Aegon was amazing.
Yeah.
Although
the
I didn't,
funeral procession.
I was going to say I didn't like that actually.
You didn't like it?
Not in
What
retrospect. Because when it happened, I thought it was neat to see Helena's character come out and her get kind of paranoid about the whole idea of all these people being like in her space.
Yeah.
Like,
she's having a panic attack, it looks like.
Yeah, it was neat, but I think I liked it again because of that detail view, because I'm like, because I want to know more about Helena and stuff, and so it's cool that I get to see that. But as for the story, I don't think it matters that I'm seeing that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, the procession was a plot point. It was part of the story. In terms of a strategic move, you know, I mean, Otto's because Otto's scheme versus Cole's scheme, right? And Aegon and Cole basically completely destroy any good faith that Aegon had or that Otto had created, by doing his little scheme,
right? It was. I guess what I'm saying is that the moment didn't seem to be about the procession happening.
Right, they're focusing on Helena.
Right?
Yeah, as though it was a Helena character development moment.
Exactly.
And we still don't have a reason for why Helena is a developed character.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm trying to read more into it, and they gave me that scene, and I'm like, okay, so what's going to happen now? And nothing. So.
I think maybe I've been conditioned from Game of Thrones to just expect them to go further, bloodier, grosser, more shocking.
Sure.
And so when that wagon got stuck,
I was on the edge of my seat. Yeah,
that body's gonna fall off.
Right.
Oh my God!
No,
that head's gonna fucking come off, man. Like I was sure it was gonna happen.
Yeah, they even had it wasn't a close up, not an extreme close up.
Dude, that head was wobbling.
You could see.
You could see the stitches, and it wobbled. It seriously wobbled. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. So are
they really going to do that to me?
Right.
You know? Right. And sometimes I'm like, please do that to me. That's what I came here for.
I signed up for
this. This is Game of Thrones, man.
Right.
Yeah. Aegon like chopping up his daddy's train set was kind of cool.
That was crazy.
I know. His daddy worked hard on that.
It was interesting because we actually have development with that little set.
Right. Yeah. You know, he spent a lot of time on his model of old Valyria.
Yeah, I think that's a really good filmmaking thing right there. If you look back to season 1 and you see how much effort Jaehaerys spent on building, or I mean, maybe he didn't personally build it, but you saw him with it a lot and talking about how he talked with the Masons about how to build it and stuff like that. And he was always really interested in history, so it was really cool to see those moments all the time. It didn't matter, but it was always those details that were just there, right, in the background of the scene. And then we use it in season 2. I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Other than Aegon's like little arc that he had here of learning what to do versus what not to do, I guess, in the situation.
Yeah. Other
than that, I don't think there was a whole lot that happened in the episode.
Let's see.
We have an argument between Daemon and Rhaenyra.
That was interesting and may become consequential. I honestly don't know.
That's the thing. I don't know.
Like even from a book spoiler perspective, I really don't know where this is going.
That's funny. But that whole moment, Alicent had a whole conversation with Massaria. Is that her name?
Yes, that's another part that not Alicent. You mean
Alicent? No, it was Rhaenyra.
Yeah, Rhaenyra.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah, Rhaenyra, was talking to the White Worm.
White Worm.
That was another scene I kind of felt was really flat.
So a lot of this I felt like is a lot of. I want to say it's filler. It's not filler. It's just other plot points that we haven't gotten to yet.
Is there a reason we have to give more to this character? Right. Like,
well, it seems like she's now becoming more plot integrated. Like she was always planned to be this. But it never seemed like we planned it from the beginning.
She's going to become Rhaenyra's hand.
Right, something like that. Yeah. It seemed like there was a neat connection between the two characters. And if I were reading this maybe in a book, then it probably would be more interesting. But at the moment, it feels like it's forced into there.
Yeah. It definitely does.
Yeah.
You know, again, from like I told you about the Eric Arik thing in the book, they just pass each other in the hallway.
Right.
And so the show manufactured a story beat for Missaria.
Right.
She points out that, oh, wait a minute. You know, she raises the alarm.
Yeah.
When she sees him coming up from the, she's like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Right? So they're purposefully making her more important. And then, you know, next episode, they'll be like, we must repay our debts to you. How can we thank you?
Yeah.
You shall be princess of something. Or, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like it because I still just don't find her a very interesting character.
She's not, because I don't think we've had much development with her personally.
Yeah.
She's been an interesting tool, but that's about it. Kind of like, weirdly enough, Aemond has been kind of just a tool. He was very developed, I think, in season 1 when he was a kid, and then we get to see his rise to like the whole dragon thing, the dragon pit where they gave him a pig instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the eye loss, but on top of that, also he got the dragon himself later on.
Yeah.
There's a huge arc going on there. It was awesome.
That was awesome.
But season 2, he's just kind of here, and we
tell the end of. He had one really good moment in this episode.
A moment.
Yeah.
About the conversation that he has with what's her name?
When he's in that brothel.
Yeah.
He's naked. He's not interested in sex.
Yeah.
And is talking about like he's being vulnerable with this woman.
Right.
Which is something he doesn't show to anyone, is vulnerability.
But it doesn't say anything, I don't think, about anything.
It connects you more to the character.
It makes him more vulnerable.
Makes him more real. I appreciated that scene a lot because to this point, say since mounting Vhagar, he'd become pretty one-dimensional psychopath villain. That's what they're making him look like. With the exception of the moment that he looks concerned after Jace gets chomped.
I'd say there was a more complex character underneath because a lot of his dialogue was in there in season 1 also. We're not talking about season 1, but when he talks about he's going to capture Aegon and he's like, you know, I could be the one who takes his place, and then chooses not to and goes against Aegon's will to make him king. I think that's really interesting. That's complex, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But that was plot oriented, and I just don't think I need any more detailed characteristics of him that's not connected to the plot in any way. That doesn't make any sense to me at this point. I think what I'm getting at is that I don't like all these scenes that are just not connected to the plot, because it slows everything down.
Sure. I think that scene in particular only barely slides across into the category you're describing.
Yeah.
And it feels less shoehorned in because it's one of our main characters.
Right.
You know,
most
that we're
definitely,
already connected to.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, whoa, this is new. This is new information about this guy.
Well, same with that panic attack that Helena had, right? Like,
yeah.
Helena has a panic attack, and I'm like,
definitely a lot less connected to Helena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
And I don't know if it was just in my mind because these scenes were less important, but I felt like the scene of Alan's brother on the beach and the scene of the blacksmith in his house did not look, literally look even as good as the rest of the show. The bit in the house felt like there was a genuine shift in production quality.
I mean, maybe it was probably just a different unit.
Yeah, like the B unit that usually shoots like B-roll, you know, because it felt like I had changed the channel.
Yeah,
it felt like I was like click and oh, what is this Netflix show? You know,
it definitely had a coverage kind of feel to it.
There's been some sequences where I was like, oh, that was masterfully thought out, planned, and executed.
Yeah.
And it makes me again wonder, is it just like a triaged production?
Right.
Certain things have more import and get more attention, and other things are like, this is kind of B-level stuff, so we're just going to do coverage.
Right.
Because that blacksmith's scene was shot like a sitcom.
It was, yeah,
and
totally.
The opening sequence where there's the chaos in the castle immediately after discovering the body, The real slow, blurry fade in as they're pushing down this hallway.
Yeah.
And then you see the woman walking in slow motion with the bloody blanket, and all these chaotic shots of them rounding up the household workers and servants and bringing them in, like visually storytelling the aftermath
Absolutely.
of this and the chaos and the emotion.
Yeah.
And it was all beautiful. It like
was.
shot, stitched to shot,
Yeah.
stitched to shot in a way that can only happen when you have storyboarded and chosen what you're doing well and ahead of time.
Right. Yeah. That's what we're talking about with visual storytelling, is that right there. All those shots mean something.
Yeah.
But also with, I wanted to talk about, you brought up sitcom style. The battle between the twins I thought was shot really weak.
Do you?
Yeah. I felt tense. But no, that's the thing. It didn't stand out to me.
Oh,
It
I'm saying
should
no,
have.
like problem stood out to me.
No, but it should have been a really tense sequence.
Yeah.
I understand now. I think now that we're talking about it, because we're feeling like they wrote something that was a little bit more involved than the book,
Right.
And this kind of went that route, and that was it, and they cut it off. But to me, like that moment with Kristen Cole and Eric, where he's sending him to go do the mission, like that is a really tense, really dramatic moment that they have very specific cutaways to. Like they have over the shoulders that get closer and closer and closer, not necessarily coverage shooting.
Yeah.
With large amount of depth, and also they cut to like the other soldiers there, or the other knights, and they get up out of the table. They're like, "Oh, we better fucking go because it's about to get weird." Like that stuff is really interesting, and that's all visual storytelling.
All right. So this leads me right into my favorite wrap-up question that we've been doing lately, right?
How would you make it better?
Yeah. What would you do differently if this was yours?
I'd cut a lot of the fat.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I think I have my answer pretty defined.
Yeah, do it.
Which is that, I'd literally lop out scenes
Right.
that are the whole scenes that are there.
Yeah.
If I don't have a way to organically make these characters appear in the show, I don't want them in the show.
Yeah.
So fucking Blacksmith is out, and Alan's brother is out.
Right.
At least for now.
Right.
And with that extra real estate I just earned in the episode, I am going to have a tense infiltration sequence with Sir Arik.
Oh yeah.
Where he's nearly caught many times, maybe even has to kill someone on his way in.
Yeah.
And maybe even see his brother start to find out what's going on, realizing what's happening, and have that dash against the clock where it feels like he's probably going to be too late,
Yeah.
And then really have the import that was suggested when Cole is giving him the mission.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Arik was afraid. He was scared because he knew this was a suicide mission.
Right.
And yet it almost looked like if it weren't for White Worm, he would have just walked in there, killed her, and left.
Yeah.
With no issues.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the weakest moment was that part, because it did feel like what should have happened was that he could have just walked in, killed Rhaenyra, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's I actually got to the Game of Thrones part of my
You're like,
soul.
oh shit.
Yeah, where I'm just like, oh, Rhaenyra's gonna die.
Yeah.
But it would that would have been so interesting, and it's just the way that it happened was so not interesting.
In the book, they really talk more about the emotion of the two brothers.
Yeah.
Because when they part, they have a moment where they both realize they're going opposite directions. And they say something to the effect of, like with tears in their eyes, like, we acknowledge that the next time we meet, we'll be enemies. And so then they finally meet. And of course, they're twins who have trained together their whole lives, and so it's the most evenly matched battle like ever.
Sure.
They don't tell us what happens in the book, but they do say that it ended with them like weeping as they killed each other.
Yeah.
And that the small folk wrote and sang songs about the love of these brothers who had to kill each other.
Yeah.
For ages afterwards.
Like that sounds great, and that needs to be felt
the emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that.
Because they were shoehorned in and not developed in the way all the main characters were.
Yeah. So one of my things was if I had to change this episode, it goes much farther back now, but I would take out I would either take out all of the brothers stuff or I would make it much, much, much earlier.
Yeah.
Because that stuff, it is a really dramatic, interesting story.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how another Kingsguard member got developed into the storyline in Sir Criston Cole.
Right.
Right. He's at the tournament, right, and has his battle with Daemon, and that's where we meet him. He takes off his helmet. And so then Rhaenyra is enamored with him and chooses him as a Kingsguard. They have their fling.
Yeah.
Right? And so what happens with Criston Cole, good or bad, moving forward, matters to us.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't have to take up that much screen time, but you could have done the same thing with these brothers.
You could have, And I feel like the only empathetic moment that we got with them was when they pledged allegiance to opposite sides.
Yes.
It was just a little bit.
It was a little. Specifically, when Eric shows up at Dragonstone with the stolen crown.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
But I still could have easily forgotten who this was.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what sucks about it, right?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And now they're doing it with the damn blacksmith. And I'm like, if something really important happens with the blacksmith in the next 2 episodes, I'll be kind of pissed off, actually.
I mean, they're introducing for a reason. Same with Alan's brother.
Right. And so, like, we should have had in, like, the first act of episode 1, we're down on the streets of King's Landing, and here's a blacksmith, and he's talking to his apprentice about how his daughter's sick.
Right.
Maybe his wife stops by, something like that. Then when he shows up at the Red Keep to talk to the king, we already are kind of rooting for him, and then when we go to his house, we're like, oh, this is the house he was talking about, and oh my God, there's his daughter. She's really sick.
Right. Yeah.
That's what like.
We need.
I'm not that smart, people. I'm just saying this is how you tell a story.
Yeah. You develop characters by providing empathy with them.
Yeah.
At some point, and really Hugh, like that whole part with his daughter. It's weird because I don't feel connected with that moment with him.
No.
And it feels like I should.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I know it so felt like I should that I was questioning either A, I missed some scene to set this up, or B, this is someone else someone than I think it is, kind of thing. I'm like, wait, who is this?
What makes the difference, though? What makes the difference between someone who you introduce as a character for empathy because they're going to be in the plot, and a character that you feel like you already know, and thus you have empathy with them already?
I think there's a pacing thing to it. We show up in their house kind of abruptly in the episode, right? Yeah. He doesn't appear prior in this episode.
Right.
The only time we see him is at
he's at the king's count.
He goes to ask the king for help. I think first impressions matter. And I think in your first impression, there's something there that clues to you that this is someone you're supposed to follow.
I think it's a perspective shift that needs to happen.
That's interesting. Yes, because we definitely did not move to his perspective at all.
Yeah, we're still acting.
He was a story device,
right,
in that episode,
right,
and then a character in the second episode,
right. We're not seeing him as a character.
That is it. He wasn't introduced as a character.
Yeah.
Imagine if an assassin snuck into Hugh's house next episode and killed his family. How would you feel?
Yeah, not much.
I'd feel nothing. I'd feel nothing at all.
Not much.
Yeah. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I still love House of the Dragon.
Hey, I do too.
I'm going to keep watching it.
Me too.
And I hope we all learned a little bit about storytelling today, folks. This was storytelling.
That's our sign off. Yeah. And I hope we all learned a little bit about storytelling.
Yeah, our sign off is now. What did we learn today, D?
Now that we've reverse filmmaked.
Yeah. No, our actual sign off is, hey, I hope you've enjoyed watching or listening to Reverse Filmmaking.
I hope you haven't enjoyed watching or listening.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Strong intention.
And don't go to our Patreon.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Don't continue following. Don't subscribe. Don't like this video.
Is that like reverse psychology?
Reverse, yeah.
How about like and subscribe, please?
Yeah.
Please.
No.
And
no.
And do know that we are also on Patreon and would love some support so we can keep the old lights on. You know what I mean?
I'm cutting this out.
Please.
I'm cutting it out.
Why?
I'm going to cut this out.
Anyway.
There's no engagement here. Why does this scene matter, Kenny?
Oh.
Why is this plot heavy?
I have mommy issues.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I feel bad for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
See you next time.